And you're already going live.
In my life?
You're about to be. You're live. You're on.
Okay. All right, guys, we're live. Now we're live. We had a little issues there with the. So here we go.
Always technical.
And we're trading stocks. Yeah. Okay, so we're good right there, right? Okay. So are we live there? We're live? We're good?
We are live. Just give it a few minutes before starting to come on.
Okay. Let me get back in there. Let's see. Oh, wow. It looks good now.
Yes.
Are you in there, Walter?
Yes, sir.
Naomi's on there, right? Yeah. Okay.
So this is our 7th episode.
This is number 7 here?
This is number
Wow.
7.
Wow.
Awesome.
You know, we were talking with my daughter. We were thinking about bringing on Layla, and I was like, I don't know, mija, because I'm a crybaby. I'll start crying right away.
That makes two of us. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like a big crybaby. Right away, you start thinking about leaving them, going to prison. They're fending for themselves.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, man.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest problems is when I try talking seriously, I end up getting overly emotional, and it just stays right here like a knot in my throat.
So it's not just me then?
No. I think it's a lot of us.
You think it has to do with that we were in prison or?
No. You know what? I can say I've been like that my whole life.
Really?
As a matter of fact, prison taught me to be able to control that. Like I couldn't control it at all before.
Well,
But
in prison I didn't do any crying.
Yeah,
I didn't do any crying.
crying.
In prison I didn't do any crying.
So I learned how to choke it down in prison. But,
yeah, like what?
I had no idea how to do that because I wasn't taught it. My dad, funny enough, I mean, as old school as my dad was, and tough as he was, my dad was a big softy at heart. Like a lot of men my age have, their dads don't tell them they love you. My dad every day would tell me he loved me.
Really?
He's like, you know what? Nobody ever told me they love me. I love you.
So I'm telling you.
Yeah, he would tell me all the
Dude.
time.
That was awesome. My father comes from like old school too, where they really didn't tell you they loved you. I knew he loved me, just not by the words, but by the action.
Yeah.
Things that he would do for me and my brothers. And so how's the voice out there? You guys can hear it out there?
I can hear
You can hear it? Sounds good. Can you guys hear us out there? We're just getting ready to go. We're getting ready to go back on, but I want to make sure that you guys can hear us. If you can hear us good, let us know. Yeah, if you get a chance, share it. Share this video, send it to someone, share it. And if you have any questions, let us know. We got a moderator. My wife is the moderator. We got Captain Evil with us today. Captain Evil. We got Captain Evil with us today. So, all right. So the purpose of this podcast that we do is for guys that have been in prison and not really been in prison. You really don't have to be in prisons to be on the program. I always like to talk to people that had either a drug addiction or any kind of addiction, because a lot of guys that we deal with, they're either in prison or they have addictions, right?
Yeah.
And we want to work with these guys, but we want them to know that when they're out of prison, that it's not over for them. I mean, you're in prison, you're locked up, you're scared because you're coming home, but you really don't know what it's going to be like when you're getting home. So this podcast, not only do we want to let you guys know the guys that are coming out of prison, but we also want to educate the family members when they come out.
Yes.
Don't be expecting a perrito coming home, a little doggy tamed coming home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of guys come home with PTSD, coming with a lot of problems coming home. So you got to kind of give them space. So this is what the podcast is for, not only for the inmates that are coming out,
but the family.
but the family too.
That's very important.
Right? So I'm here with Rob. right?
Yes, Rob.
Now, you said we met.
Quite a few times, really.
Really?
I think I did work at one of your houses with Hank.
Okay.
I work with Bray a lot too.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you're
Yeah, I've
Bray,
met you a couple times. So
and we did work at a
because
That
I know
spot
your
in,
I know your
Pomona.
wife
Yes.
since we were kids.
Mhm.
I know your wife when she was maybe about a year old or so. So
yeah.
you know what I
and
mean?
y'all
So
are
that's
like
how
cousins.
we're cousins. Yes. So we know the family. We've been close to the family, so we know all the kids. So let's start with your testimony. I know you've gone to prison.
Yes.
So before you got into the drugs, right? Before you really got into the drugs, what was your life before? I mean, what were you raised? How was your dad?
You know, my dad was loving. He was a great. I always say my dad was a great man. He was a
Okay.
great father. He was a terrible husband. You know, he was just
Okay.
bad at it. You know, like three
Good dad, but bad husband. Okay.
three wives, and I think he got it right the third time. You know,
Oh,
like,
man.
but was it right, or was he like already 50 and didn't ran through it all already?
Was his last name Perales?
it was a, you know, it was rough. You know, my parents they drank a lot. And I don't like to put anything on them. You know, they drank, but you know, it was my dad was always a weekend
warrior.
you know, because he worked. You know, the main thing about my dad was work.
Right.
You work.
You want to party, but you got to go to work
you gotta
Monday
go
morning.
To work, and you have to provide. That was his
Mhm.
big thing. He told me the only piece of advice I ever listened to is he told me, he was, you know, and this is very like women are not going to like this, but my dad told me you shouldn't trust your wife's money. It's not because she could get pregnant or she could just quit because of whatever. And at the end of the day, it's your job to take care of everybody.
Yeah. So
And-
your dad was old school.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing with us. My dad was like, "Hey, you need to, no matter what happens, you need to provide for your kids and your wife." And you know, so yeah, that's old school thinking. Now, was there any drugs in the family? Your mom and dad?
My mom smoked marijuana. She stayed with weed her whole life. She still imbibes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she gets edibles now and what have you. But where she lives in Michigan, it's legal. So, but she lives here and there. So when she's here, she's got to find people to get it. Over there, she just goes. They get the little gummies at a dispensary and all that. And my dad was
legal out there. Yeah.
Yeah, and my dad liked his beer. He liked his beer, and we, you know, when I was, but it you know, it starts you on a bad path. They were alcoholics, but they were raised by alcoholics. They didn't know better.
So your dad was alcoholic.
yeah,
so
definitely.
their dad was alcoholic.
Oh, definitely. And
Wow.
everybody drank to the point when I was like 14. There wasn't a like if I'm going to I was gonna drink.
When?
I was just and when it was gonna be okay.
Yeah,
And I think
right.
about 15, it was okay to drink at home. You know, if I could drink, I just don't make a fool out of yourself for me, you know. And I could drink if they were having a party or something like that. And my dad I'd sit down for a meal and he'd give me a beer. He goes, if you're gonna drink, you're gonna learn to do it right. And I'm like, I don't think this is like a good idea.
Well, you know, I've heard of people like that where they let their kids drink around them. Look, I don't want you to be partying. I don't want you to go out. I don't want you to get drunk, get hurt.
And you're safe
here.
here.
You're safe here. I want you to drink here. If your friends are coming over, I want you to do it here, you know. So I've seen that before.
And I thought I was gonna be fine. I thought it no big deal. But looking back, you know, at 16, I was a full-blown alcoholic.
At 16?
At 16 already. By the time I met my wife at 17, she would try. She was in the altar in church, and she was, you know, to go out with her on Sunday, I had to go to church. You know,
Wow, that's a good one.
And Grandpa Cerna.
That's Grandpa Cerna.
Yeah.
That's a good one, bro.
You want to see her on Sunday, you got to go
see,
to church.
Yeah, you want to see my granddaughter, you got to go to church.
And I would show up at church like this, just like, oh,
hungover?
no, yeah, real bad. And then people would pray for me, and I'm like, and she's like, well, you know,
Now-
everyone can kind of tell.
Now your wife was raised in the ministry when she was little.
Since she was little. When I met her, she was playing her saxophone and singing on the altar.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, like I said, you know, I was her rebellion,
Mm-hmm.
and I should have followed her, and instead, I got her to follow me.
She ended up following you.
And it was probably like the biggest mistake
Well,
I've ever
in your
made.
family, was there any like abuse, like fighting and stuff like that?
Oh, there was constant fighting. You know, if my parents drank, it was gonna, and you know, it was a 50-50 shot if that night was gonna end in hugs or
fist fight,
headlocks. Headlocks, yeah.
All of us.
And you know,
Yeah.
I have an older sister that, you know, she blames her whole life on that. You know, I had to see that. I'm like, you never had to hold dad down so y'all could escape. You know, I don't think you need to put that much credit into what they did. You know, because I was always the kind of person who said, I am, you know, like I am who I am. You know, I'm not going to blame them, because then I have to give everybody credit.
I feel, you know what? No, you're right, because I feel the same way. I think my father thought, you know, for a long time, my father thought the reason why I was a heroin addict was because he was a heroin addict. And it was like, no, you're a heroin addict because I was a heroin addict, and my DNA is in your DNA. And I was like, no, Dad, you know, I think I kind of believed it, but I also wanted him to know that it wasn't his fault, because when we were kids, when I was a kid, a smaller, right, I used to see my father fix. You know, I'd see him put the drug in the spoon and then stir it up. You know, put the lighter, you know, the match under the spoon to cook. He dropped the cotton in there, and then he would pick up on the syringe, and he would tie himself. Then he would shoot up. I was a kid when I saw that. You know, so as far as it, I don't really remember it. I just, if I go back in my storage,
try to remember.
if I go back, I can see it. You know, when I was a kid, he would shoot up and everything. So I would tell Dad, no, I'm a heroin addict because I want to be a heroin addict, not because, you know, you were a heroin addict. No, you're like that because I was. And, you know, it's just, he believed that DNA that was in, you know, so I took my responsibility, but in a way I did believe that, in a way, but sometimes you have to own it up. Yeah, you have to own up. You got to, you know, man up and say, hey, you know, I'm a heroin addict because I got myself there.
And I remember one time I was staying at my mom's because I'd messed up again. And she's like, you know, y'all had to see everything. And I'm sorry that y'all had to. I'm like, yeah, well, no. I'm a jerk. But I'm a jerk because I'm a jerk. And that's not your fault. That's my fault.
Do you think you were trying to cover something there? Because
no, I just always believed on owning things, you know, owning up to who you were. I always took blame.
Blame.
Because I wanted to take credit for what I did right.
Right.
And, you know, going further in my life, I realized that was a big mistake too, because I never gave God his due.
His due.
I never said, you know, oh, thank God I have all this. Thank God I have my job, my family, my wife. No. This is mine. I did this.
With your own strength.
With my own strength. Yeah. This is me. And how quickly God reminds you. Reminds you. Well, no, because he doesn't do it. He just lets it happen to you. Lets you do the things that are going to lead you down the right. Like, if that's where you want to go, this is where it's going to lead you.
And the cool thing about God is that he's given us a choice.
Yeah. He's
given us free will. And the only thing is that when we get in trouble and we do these things, we have to pay consequences. You get in trouble, you got to pay for it. I mean, there's no other way around it. You're going to pay for it, right? So, okay, so you're growing up. You grew up in a family that was alcoholics, right?
Yes.
You growing up, what was your choice of drug, or what did you like?
I love beer. Matter of fact, I didn't touch any, except for I tried to smoke marijuana, but I didn't touch any real drugs until I was in my mid-20s. I just drank a lot and poorly, mind you. I was a very quick and sleepy drunk
right away.
And when I found cocaine in my 20s, it was like, now I can keep up with everybody. You know, now
you can drink and stay up.
Now I can stay up, and it was like a snowball. You know, you start off, oh, I'm only going to do it on the weekends, and then next thing you know, you're doing it all the time, and then Coke isn't enough, and then you start finding ice, and then you're up for 4 days straight.
So how did you go from the transition from Coke to ice? Because there's a big space there. You know,
Oh yeah, I mean
'cause-
it's a journey of
yeah, because you're doing coke and you're doing it in the weekends and you're partying and everything, and then all of a sudden, ice is that's a destroyer. I mean, as much as well, my drug of choice was heroin, but that's a destroyer. But I mean, ice just totally not just destroys you, the family, your wife, your kids, but it also destroys the body.
yes.
I mean, ice destroys a body.
It is. It's horrible. It is horrible. I mean, your brain isn't made to stay up for days.
Yeah.
I mean,
You start hallucinating.
hallucinating
Yeah.
very quickly.
On the second day, yeah, you're seeing aliens and hearing voices and
shadows and
yeah.
it's terrible. And it's the weird thing. Like I think I told you, we had friends who sold drugs, so there was just always drugs. If we drank, there was drugs, and I didn't have to pay for anything, so nothing's coming out of my pocket. What big deal is it? And we're at a party and there's just drugs everywhere. And ice was great because I was just sober. Like I was sloppy, drunk, couldn't stand, and I could do it and be sober. And that's what I wanted. So I could drink.
Okay,
for
so
days.
at any time did you push out alcohol and just start doing ice?
No, it was always alcohol always came first. And I want to say, yeah, I was addicted to drugs because it helped my addiction to alcohol. But all of that fed into my biggest addiction, which was anger.
Anger? Okay, check this out. I believe, what I see and what I believe is that, growing up, we grow up with these issues. Like as much as you don't want to admit, as much as I don't want to admit what I saw when I was a kid, I think as we get older, we find these chemicals that will keep us balanced.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
You're
then
self-medicated.
Self-medicated, we find these chemicals, like I did coke and I did crank and then I did pills and drink and all that stuff. And then later choice as an older that would keep me balanced was heroin. But I think it's something that we're looking for to keep we recognize that, man, we're jacked up, man. And then without the chemical that we need, our choice, you can't function. Because I was, the crazy thing was I was a heroin addict for over 10 years, but I was a functioning heroin addict in the trucking, in the oil field, had truck, had money. And I was a functioning heroin addict.
Yeah.
So as much as we don't want to admit that our family, I think it's something that we have in us that we have to stay chemically imbalanced. In your case was drinking, you felt kind of mellow.
Yeah.
And then the ice would kind of help you to continue to drink, continue to party. But at any time, did you feel that you were just doing too much?
Oh, it's funny. It's like the moment you do it, you're not supposed to be doing it. Like literally, I would do it and be like, "What am I doing?"
Now, were you snorting or smoking?
I would snort ice. Yeah. And
did you ever smoke it?
Close. We used to do hot rails where you heat up the glass
rail,
straw.
the rail, and just
and
well, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Smoke comes out of your mouth.
Smoke
anyway.
comes out of your mouth.
Sorry, guys, if whoever doesn't know about that, but
yeah, and I thought it was
because the high is when you exhale is
when you exhale and then you feel it, and I thought everything was fine.
Educational class here on drugs,
which is terrible, but
right.
This is the road that leads you to your bottom, where God picks you up from.
But listen, Bert, we're talking about drugs and his choice of drugs and my choice of drugs, and the thing is, what we're trying to get across is that this is all part of the enemy. The enemy wants to come in and give you an addiction, then it breaks your family. It's going to break your family. I don't care how strong you are with your wife and how the bond, and I love her and she loves me and I love my kids. Once the enemy gets in, he gets in there and he has you drinking, he has you smoking. And of course, he's going to get you to start smoking. You're going to drink a little bit. You're going to do a little coke. It's going to destroy the family. And this is I haven't seen a family stay together that's been on drugs.
No.
What I mean? I haven't seen it. Either, like Dad used to say, either you're going to go to prison or you're going to die. You're going to OD or you're going to go to prison. And those were, he'd always tell me, hey, deja de hablar. You're gonna OD or she, you know. And then my father was a minister. He was a pastor, and he would tell me, man, I know what you're doing. You can hide it as much as you want. You're weighing 130 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, what can you say that you're not on drugs? You're 130 pounds. I'm close to 200 right now, but you imagine,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I mean, my wife could call me out from across the room, literally across the room. She's like,
That's him.
she knows I did something. She could see it
Right.
from across the room. And, you know, that's, but the biggest thing is, like what you said, it destroys your family. You think you're doing fine. I thought it was very high functioning. I was not very high functioning. I thought I was, because I was controlling everything. But at the end of the day, I lost my wife. She didn't want anything to do with me. By the time I got locked up in county, she was done. My kids they stopped wanting to go out to eat. They just want to be at home. And you think it's because they're at that age. They just didn't want to be around me anymore. You know, my kids don't want to be around me. My wife doesn't want to be around me. I've alienated most of my family. My mom's like, if you have to come, yeah, because my stepdad doesn't want me around because because nobody wants me around, you know? And
that's what you've done to yourself. And that's what we've done to ourselves. If you're listening to this, you've done it to yourself.
Oh, yes.
Where your family, they're afraid of you. You know, they're either you're going to get in a fight, something's going to happen. Sometimes you're on drugs and they're going to miss their DVR, or they're going to miss their jewelry or something. So they're afraid to have you over when you have these drug addictions because something's going to be missing. You're like, man, do I still got my wallet?
Yeah.
Babe, you got your purse, you know? You know
what
what I mean?
It's just more, it was like, what's Rob going to say?
Yeah.
You know, what horrible thing's going to come out of my mouth? Insulting thing is going to come out of my mouth. And it would come out, and I wouldn't even think. I'm like, oh, they're being sensitive.
So you're raising this cool family.
Basically, I mean, like, my house was the house that all my friends wanted to hang out
But
with.
you're saying that none of your issues, none of the issues you have, none of the chemical imbalances you have doesn't come from your family. So where did you get the anger from?
No. The anger definitely came from the family. Growing up the way I grew up, I'll admit that anger came from the things I saw. But not only that, look, to be honest, I was a real fat kid. And I took everything so sensitively. I was so angry because I felt like I was picked on. And I literally spent the rest of my life.
So you were bullied on. Is that what it was?
I felt
pretty
like
much
everybody was bullying me all the time. And that didn't stop. I lost weight and got in shape. And you know what? It didn't stop. I still felt like everybody was picking on me.
Mm-hmm.
Literally my whole life. Like I'm 30 years old and I think somebody, you know, they're saying something about me, or, oh, what you said, you meant that towards me.
Oh,
and I would get angry about it all the time. You know, my wife couldn't be like, oh, don't wear that shirt. Oh, what are you trying to, like, I would get upset about it all the time. And I was just carrying around anger. And, you know, I think all men have this thing, you know, this is why old men become, they say, you know, older men become cranky old men, because we carry the burdens of our family. You know, we carry the burden of paying for everything and taking care of everything, and you pile on stuff, you know, and then you're bitter because you have to carry the weight that you put on yourself.
Well,
and so I was bitter. I was bitter and angry.
And the thing is society nowadays have told us that you're a man.
Yes.
And if you show that you're weak, your family's going to look down on you. You know, society has told us that we're the man, we're the macho, we got to keep the job, we got to keep our head. Even though we're going through all these emotions, we go through emotions too. Guys are sensitive. I'm a big crybaby now, but you go through all these emotions, right? And you can't really tell your family because they don't understand you. This guy's weak, man.
Yeah.
You know, that we're weak, and that, you know, I was talking the other day. Did you know that suicide for men is up 68%?
Yes.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? 68%. And why is that? It's because we don't share our feelings.
Yep.
You know, when women have a problem, who do they call? La comadre. They'll call somebody, you know, right?
They will.
You guys call somebody. Yeah, you call somebody. You know, you call somebody, right? Or, you know what I've noticed, that women right away. Not all the women. Don't hang up. Don't.
Not everybody.
I got it. Not all the women. Hold on. See that? So, not all the women. Not all the women. I've been abused. So not all the women, but a lot of the women, when they have issues, they go to Facebook and they just release them. You know, it releases anger. They release, but in a way, it's good because then you have other people, other women that are going through the same thing. They'll say, hey, I'm going through the same thing, and they share.
Yeah.
But us men, we're not going to go there and just say, hey, I'm broken. I've been broken. I'm imbalanced. We're not going to go say stuff like that because we've been taught not to show our feelings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then what happens is they commit suicide.
Yeah, because you're holding it all in.
You're holding it all in.
Or you're holding it in so much, and you're walking around just holding it in, and then you have a 6-pack of beer, and you want to beat up everyone. Like everybody.
I didn't need drugs to fight,
Yeah,
so
I
didn't need a beer to fight. I was always in fights.
I was always trying to be the nice guy. It's kind of insulting either way, but like I would, as soon as I drank, I wanted to tell people stuff, and I was the drunk that nobody wants around.
You were one of those.
This is how bad I was. I'm sober. I'm happy to be sober, and if I run into old friends, none of them offer me beer.
They know.
Not one of them. They're like, you are so much better.
Yeah, they know you better.
My alcoholic friends don't want me to drink. So that's how you know you have a problem. When your alcoholic friends are like, no, you're so much better.
All right, so you went to prison.
Yeah, I got 3 years TDC.
Now, we talked a little bit. We try not to rehearse too much, but we were talking a little bit, and I hate to be asked, to have a guideline and ask questions, because it's not raw, right? So we were talking earlier. So you were in jail county.
I'm in county jail.
They were going to give you
3 years.
No.
Oh no, they were going to give me 90 days.
They were going to give him 90 days, but since they ran late at the court, they said, hey, we're going to reschedule you for 2 weeks. So you're already thinking 90 days.
90
I'm coming
days,
home.
no problem. I'm coming home. I'm telling her.
You're calling the wife, hey, babe, let's throw a party. I'm coming home.
Beer on ice and bring me a ball.
Yeah.
Like
you're
literally told her that. And I go in front of the
judge, right?
And he says 3 years. And boom, my knees buckle. I'm like, 3 years? What happened to 90 days? Which I'm almost at. I was at like 67 days.
So you could have got time served.
I should have been going home in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
And instead, 3 years. And
so you hear 3 years. I remember being in front of the judge, and the sentence was like 10 years. Oof. And I was just like a zombie. My knees didn't buckle. I just in my mind was, I can do this. I just didn't. First of all, I had programmed myself while I was waiting for trial. I was waiting for trial for 2 years. And I kept saying, this is not going to break me. They're not going to break me. I'm not going to break. No matter how much time they give me, I'm not going to break. I'm not going to break. But, the crazy thing is you really don't feel the blow until you get back to your cell.
Yeah. Yeah. It's when it sets in and
it's for real. It's for real. It's for real,
it's
dude.
For real.
You're like, man, I am going to prison.
Yeah.
I am going to be like my dad. I'm going to be in prison like my dad. And my dad kept saying, hey, you're going to end up in prison. Now you're in prison. Now you're looking to go to prison. So they give you 3 years.
They give me 3 years.
Okay.
And I go. And really, I didn't take it very well. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And because never did I expect it. I thought, what's
the first thing that came to your mind? Because
my wife.
Okay.
I was terrified for her.
Okay, so
what is she gonna do?
Were you in a pod or were you in a cell?
I was in a pod. I was at the annex.
Okay, so you were with about 50, 60 guys, or
60? What is it? 64.
Okay, so you're in a pod. The pods are big. So you're in a pod, and the reason why they keep guys in pods is because they're able to. They try not to isolate you. If they put you in a pod in a cell by yourself, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to think, and it's just. So when they put you in a pod with a lot of guys, you can share. Hey man, I went to the judge and they gave me 3 years. Well, guess what? They gave so and so 10 years. So you're like, oh, I can do 3 years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
and you talk to some guys who've been down before, and they're like, hey, don't worry, you can. And guys from Bear County, hey, if you can walk in Bear County, you can walk anywhere.
Yeah.
Because this is harder than any prison you're ever going to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. And they're like, man, I can't wait to get to prison. This is terrible.
Yeah, I used to hear that too. Yeah, when I was waiting for my time, they were like, dude, I just want to get this over with, go back to prison. I'm like, what? Why would you want to go back to prison? It was harder time doing county time than going to prison and doing prison time.
And I mean, even in a pod, you're in your bunk where you have to stay in your bunk 16 hours a day. No. Yeah, 16 hours a day where you cannot get up. All these little breaks and stuff. You have 4 hours. No, there's only 8 hours out of a day that you're out of your bunk, that you can get out of your bunk.
But think about this. You're in a pod. Even if you're in a pod and you're with a lot of guys, right? You are where you are. No matter what you do, what you say, when the lights go down, when it gets quiet and the lights are down, you, yourself, and your thoughts are by yourself. And that's when it's the hardest.
Oh, yeah.
Because you start thinking about, man, my wife's out there. She's struggling. My kids,
And you're kicking yourself for every mistake you've ever made.
Man, why couldn't I get it together?
They're just going through your head. I mean, I at that point, I think we were married for 20 years. And I'm like, 20 years worth of mistakes, going through my head. And
did you think she was going to leave you and move on? Because there's a lot of that. As soon as you get to Bear County, the girls take off.
No, my wife, I mean, she told me right off the bat, she's like, I'm not going to leave you in there. While you're in there, I'm here for you. I'm going to be there for you.
That's a good one.
I don't know if we're going to be together when you get out.
All right,
but I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to be here for you.
But I can tell you right now, if you didn't know, that if she said she was going to be with you while you were in prison, she's not going anywhere when you come out.
I think she was done.
Close.
She was
close.
done. No, my wife is very.
Huh?
I specified that I wasn't gonna leave him alone in there.
While he was in there, because you wanted to support him, right?
I was gonna support him, but I was ready to move on.
You were ready. You were done with him.
Yeah.
He was a knucklehead. He wasn't going to change.
And I definitely, I mean, if you would ask anybody, including me,
Mhm.
I am not going to change. I was never going to change. I was never going to change. Not by myself.
Not by yourself.
Never.
Well-
Never would I have changed.
Well, you don't want to change by yourself anyway,
No,
because
you
we
don't.
changed by ourselves. I tried so many times going into rehabs, paid $8,000 just to go in there for 3 months just to see if I could just break this heroin addict. I'd go to Villa Rosa and I went to these other clinics, paid cash to get in. And it was because I wanted to change, but I wasn't letting the one that should change me change me, which was God. You know what I mean? I was trying to do it on my own and said, look, man, if I can just get this right, if I can just 90 days, I'll be all right. I'll get everything, I'll get it together.
Because we want to do it on our terms.
Yeah, but you're there, you're getting ready. So
I'm getting ready, and they're trying to do prayer circles. And I'm like, man, leave me alone. They're giving me the little scraps of paper every day with
the little
verses.
Yep.
And, I'm polite enough that I'm like, okay. And I put it away. I don't read them. And
Did you say
I didn't even want a Bible. No, I put them in and I throw them away in the morning.
You didn't put them in a little.
No, I didn't even read them. Did not even read them. And didn't even want a Bible.
So were you
so
were you blaming God? God, why you got me here? Why am
No, blaming myself.
Blaming
Every
yourself.
ounce of it was me.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there one day and they give me one. They give me a paper and I open it. 1 Corinthians 13:13.
Do you remember it?
Oh, yeah.
Read it.
It's right here. And I didn't have a Bible. So I asked somebody, hey, let me borrow your Bible. Open it up. And it says, faith, hope, and love abide these three, but the greatest of these is love. And it shocked me because being the way I was, oddly enough, I knew a lot about the Bible. And I'm like, I have never heard this verse. And I called my wife the next day and I told her about this verse. And she's like, how do you not know that verse? That's a love verse. Everyone knows that verse. And you seem to know a lot about the Bible. I'm like, I don't know how I never heard it. And it's at that moment that I realized that the God I knew, the God the world taught me, was a God of punishment. He was the angry dad who got after you every time you did something wrong.
God's going to punish you.
God's
His
gonna
wrath.
punish you.
You're going to
Yes,
hell.
You're going to go to hell.
Brimstone.
Yes. And that's not the God I wanted. My whole life, I'm like, I'm running from that because I don't want that, and then I'm thinking love. And later on that week, they had people going around, ministering, and some people came in, and the only reason I stayed to listen to them was because the son of Hacksaw Jim Duggan, remember the wrestler, was going to be there, and I just wanted to hear some cool stories or something like that.
Yeah.
And he came in, and what did he preach on?
Same thing.
1 Corinthians 13, and I'm like, wow.
So that was a confirmation
To
from
me,
you.
that was total confirmation. And I'm like,
So this is in the
real.
county. In the
This is
county. Okay.
And I'm like, this is real. This is totally real. And I start praying. And I tell God, I'm like, you know what? I want to believe. I don't believe, but I want to believe. And I start, giving my prayers to God every day, all day. 16 hours in the bed. I was praying a lot.
So, but you were sentenced already.
I was sentenced already.
You knew that you were going to
I knew I
prison.
was
No other way around. You were going to
Yeah.
prison. Okay.
And
All right.
so I knew where I was going. I knew everything that was going to happen. I had set myself mentally ready, and I just decided that I was going to work on me. I'm going to work on me mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I started praying. When I wasn't praying, I was working out. If I wasn't working out, I was reading. And I kept doing those things. And then one day I'm reading, I'm reading a Game of Thrones book. And it's like 1,100 pages. And it's like the second one I've read. It's this big.
They're
They're huge.
That big.
And and I hear God. I don't know it's God at the time. In me, it's my head,
Right.
I hear, how many pages are in that book? 1,160 something. Didn't you read one already? And I'm like, yeah, I read one. It was 1,200 and something, or 1,300 and something. You can read both of those, but you can't read my book.
Can't read my words.
And I was like, wow, okay. And I started reading the Bible. And like I said, I didn't even have a Bible. I used to borrow one. Hey, can I read? And I would read, remember what page I was on or what chapter and verse, and then go back to it when next time I could borrow one, because I didn't have one yet.
Okay.
And then I get the bus trip, and we end up in Garza West. And they're right. It's so much easier. Like, you have freedom to move around.
Right.
And I'm talking to a couple of people and everything.
So were you
seems
connected in church when you got there? No.
When I got there?
Yeah. Did you start looking for God? Did you start getting closer to God?
No, internally.
Okay.
Internally, because I'm praying, I'm reading the word. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I really need a Bible. And I see some guy, and I keep borrowing his Bible. He goes, hey, you don't have one? I'm like, no. He goes, well, I have two here.
Oh, okay.
And I'm blessed with the Bible. So I start reading. And I'm reading, days. And I finally get to after Garza, you get to your spot. And they sent me to Cotulla. And for a moment, I think giving my life to God, I swear, God was with me my whole time. I was blessed. I did the best time you can ever do. Cotulla is an AC
Not enough
unit.
not enough to go back again.
Not enough to ever go back. But Cotulla has AC.
Yeah.
Yeah. TDC AC. It's like 85 in there. So it's
comfortable.
And then I got a job in the maintenance department,
Right.
so I got to crank up my AC.
Right.
So but the whole time I'm praying. I'm working the Bible. I'm working out. I'm reading, and I'm trying to better myself. For me,
what I saw being in prison is that you either got the mindset. One thing that I've seen in prison is either you got the mindset to change yourself, to do better, to want to do better, to change your life, and to want to come back better. A lot better to improve yourself. But it's all right here. It's all in your mind. If you can't control your mind, if you can't make that little adjustment, that little twitch, you're gonna have problems. You'll have problems because all you're thinking, you're mad, you're hurt, you're disgusted, you're angry, and instead of just saying, you know what, I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna get it right. If you're listening to this and you've come out of prison and you're upset and you're like, man, I can't make it out here. I just can't. I don't get no respect. Nobody loves me. Everybody considers me a low life and I'm trash and all these thoughts that come to your head. If you're listening to this, check this out. It's not that anybody thinks bad about you. It's that you haven't made that switch. You
Yes.
haven't made that switch. You haven't seen what God thinks about you. You're thinking about, you're hearing what other people say about you, but you're not listening to what God says about you. And you hear people talking. And that's the issue. Once you make that change, like you did,
Yeah.
But that change was, look, now I'm gonna mentally, you gotta and physically, because mentally comes with physically, and then spiritually. So those are the things that you got to get in your head, right? Then you say, okay, I'm working on my mind. I'm working now. I want to be working on my body. I want to start working out. I want to do something. If it's not running, jogging, whatever it is. Now you start working spiritually. You start reading the Bible, start getting into the Word, you start praying, and those are the things that will happen for you if you make that decision. You know, the thing is, God was with you.
Oh, he was with me
You
the
know?
whole time.
And then you got to remember that Naomi, your wife,
my wife, yeah.
in the ministry, right? She's in
Yes.
the ministry. I know her. She's a little girl in the church. She raised in the church. So there's something there that is not
Yes.
just going to, even her praying for you.
And I'm telling you, I felt chased by God my whole life.
Okay.
Not my whole life. I felt chased by God my whole life that I've been with my wife. I think, you know, like you said, when I met her, she was already touched by God.
Mhm.
And I think God wanted me to be in there. And I wasn't ready. I was never ready. And I ran. And there was a couple of moments where I almost had it, and then gone. And so I fought it, and I ran from God my whole life. And this time, and you know, it was this. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the enemy did this." No, this did that, because
Right.
my mind would tell me,
Your choices.
this isn't real. That's not real. That's not that. You're gonna believe that. You're gonna believe that. And one day I'm in prison and I'm reading something that doesn't seem logical at all.
Logical.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is
Been there.
And then I said to myself, you know what? I sat there and prayed. I put it down and I started praying. I said, God, I want faith. I don't have faith, but I want faith. I'm going to choose to believe. I'm going to choose to have faith.
Now that's huge, because now you're making that switch,
Yeah.
because you're going from La La Land, fantasy land, to being
Yeah.
being realistic here. You're saying, okay,
And I'm
You know.
like, you know what? Does this make sense? No, not all of it makes sense. But you know what? I'm going to believe because I want to believe.
and you wanted to trust.
And I wanted to trust in God. And I wanted to be better for me. That took a while. I want to be better for my wife. I want to be better for my kids.
At this time, how old were your kids?
At that time, let's see, I was 4.
How-
Yeah, 16, 18, and 20.
So they were kind of growing up. Did
They were already
they ever come see you? While you were in
One
prison?
time they saw me in my first year. They came and saw me right about the end of my first year. And my mom brought them up there.
What'd you feel?
Down there. It felt amazing. I hadn't had a hug in a year. And, you know, men, it's funny because, you know, my wife would tell the story that the women would, like, when they'll go to the shower and they'll be crying and they'll hug each other. And I'm like, yeah, we don't do that. You're not going to get a hug. And if
Yeah.
you do, you're not going to want that hug.
Yeah.
So I was like, so it was the first time someone hugged me in a year, you
Yeah.
know, the first physical contact I had in a year. And it was great seeing them.
Well,
And the thing is, they were like, it almost felt disconnected because
I mean,
they weren't believing
that-
Dad changed.
as much as that they wanted to see you, then they see you, and it's not.
Yeah, they wanted, and not all of my children came.
When I left,
Only two of my
how old
children.
was Enzo when I left? Enzo was 6. Layla was what, 8? Man, a lot of for 2 years I got to see him through the glass before I got sentenced. Then going to prison, it's almost like I really didn't want them to come see me because I didn't want that memory of them seeing me in prison.
Mm.
You know, it was like, man, I kind of
And it's hard on you
because
to see them.
yeah, and it's hard to see. You're right. And then when they leave crying, and then you're like, man, you can't cry, you can't show your emotions, and you know what I mean. you want to like suck it up, and then you come back into, you're coming back into population, and you're like, yeah, man, I saw my kids. You know what I mean? You're tough. You're
Yeah.
trying to hold it back, but really,
And
your heart's broken. You got a knot. And you
everyone's trying to give you their space because they know, man, this guy's ready to get in a wreck.
yeah,
Like he is ready to,
Yeah.
like he saw his kids for the first time in a year, and everyone just
Yeah.
stay away from him because he's dangerous to be around today.
yeah, and it's hard on I remember Dad coming to see me. I didn't put my dad on my visitation for over a year, right? For about a year, and he would always say, when are you going to put me on the visiting list so I can go see you? I would talk to him on the phone. ¿Cuándo me vas a poner la vista? Dad, I put you under. No. If you put me on the list, I should be there next week. I'm like, man, it took me about a year to put Dad on there because I didn't want to see him because I knew that if I saw him, I'd start bawling.
Plus, nobody told me how anything works. I didn't know how to put anybody on the list, and then the list, you can only do it once. So I added one person, and
That's it. You're done for the year.
You're done for 6 months.
Yeah,
or a
you're
year.
done
I'm
for a
like,
year.
what?
Once you put the list, you're
yeah,
done.
so I was done for I think they do TDC is 6 months. So after 6 months, I could do it again.
Ours was 18 months, but
Man,
so I remember
I
Dad.
messed it up.
Yeah, I remember Dad coming over and he was telling me, look, I want you to understand one thing is that you're not the only one doing time. And I was like, well, what do you mean, Dad? He goes, you're not the only one doing time. I'm doing time with you.
Yeah.
Your kids are doing time with you. Your wife is doing time with you because we're waiting for you. We love you. We want you home.
Yeah. And she's taking care of me. She's sending me stuff. And I think, okay, we're working this out. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm telling her, but in the middle of this, she's in a worse addiction now than, because when I left, she went full blown into her addiction, and I'm calling her and telling her how I've changed. And when we get out, I'm going to go to church and I'm never going to drink again. And she's like, that's prison talk. That's prison talk. It's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's prison
religion.
She goes, as soon as you get out, that's going to go away. It's not real.
Don't worry, relax. Don't
Yeah.
get excited.
Don't.
But you know what?
And-
We've seen it though.
Yeah,
We've seen it,
we've seen
guys.
it.
Guys carry their Bible in prison. They carry their Bible, and then as soon as they leave it behind. They leave Jesus behind the bars over there,
Yep.
and then they try out here, and then they fail.
They fail.
And there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is that they don't have support.
Yes.
To make it out here, you gotta have
Gotta
support. You gotta have
Gotcha.
support. I don't care how strong you are, how much Bible you read, how much theology you know.
Yeah.
You could have read the Bible from the front to the back to the front. If you don't have support when you come out of prison, it's going to be tough. I'm not saying that you're not going to make it, you can't make it, you won't make it. Having support when you come out and having a group that connects you and connects your girl, your wife, that's how you make it.
Yeah.
Because you stay to these even if you go to church, you got to be connected to God. You got to be connected.
Yes.
This is why our Thursdays, we have Thursday Bible studies, and a lot of the guys and girls have come, not just the girls. I mean, the girls have been in prison too.
Yeah.
They've had their story, their issues in there, and it just works out for us because we all have a story to tell. Everybody has a story. And when you tell your story, somebody that's out there listening, I'm going through that. I just got out of prison, man. I can't get off of drinking beer. I can't get off of coke and heroin. They're going to hear, and I always encourage people that are listening to these podcasts is to share it.
Yes.
Send it to a cousin, send it to a brother, send it to a sister, share it. This way they can share it to somebody. And somebody that's going through these issues,
And if you're in addiction and you're in prison, we had a really great AA set up in Cotulla. It was huge. It was like 40 guys. No, it was more than that. It was almost 100.
Now we're going back into the prisons and preaching there in those prisons.
Yeah, and I really want to do that also. But
You've come to the right place.
okay, all right,
Now you're going back to prison with us.
because
You've come to the right place.
but we would go, and AA and the Bible, AA and church go hand in hand. I mean, they really do. And you'll hear some of the things in church and you're like, hey, I learned that in AA.
Yeah.
But my AA, the sponsor at AA said all the time, when you leave, the first thing you need to do is find a place to go have a meeting.
Accountability.
Go have a meeting. You know, that's the AA thing. When you get out, first thing you do is go find a place to have a meeting, because if not, you're going to slip back in. You want to stay sober, you got to go and start working the program right away. And that's true. But instead of doing that, I went to church. And to me, they went hand in hand. I don't, and that's not true for everybody. Some people need the AA. They need to go to class. I'm not saying anything bad about that. But what I needed was God.
But if you look at AA, it's accountability.
It is.
You have somebody that that's holding you accountable to what you're doing and your thoughts. So you're always there to call somebody. And if you really look at AA, and then you look at serving God and being well connected to a church or a group or a support group, it's pretty much the same. The only thing is that God is in our classes. God is in what we do. We talk about God because I tried to quit heroin for a long time. I tried quitting heroin. I couldn't. It wasn't until I said, you know, God, I'm going to die. I'm going to OD from heroin. I didn't want to lose my family. I knew that if I died, who was going to take care of my family? But it wasn't until I was ready, until I had enough and said, you know what, this is it. I'm done. I'm done with this. And that's when God said, okay, you're done. All right, come on. And that's when I made that transition where God changed my life. You cannot get off of any drug. And I'm going to dare to say this, if God's not in it.
No,
because if God's not in it, you're going to go back.
Yeah.
You're going to go back. God has to be in it. And you have to make that choice. You got that free will. You're ready to change. You're willing to change. God's going to make a miracle in your life.
And he did. And
so you came out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you come home. You're telling your wife, hey, baby, I've changed my life. I gave my life to Christ. I'm this new man.
There was more movements than that, because I was in there for a year, and I'm calling her, telling her how I changed. She's saying, no, I haven't. She's saying, where are you going to live? Because I'm not going to stop drinking. And then something happens. God moved in her life, and she ended up they sent her straight to a program. She went from the county she was in to a program, and she did about a year, all in all. And we're in now, and I'm waiting for my answer. When I find out she gets locked up, I'm waiting for my first answer for my short way, and they take it. And I'm like, who's going to watch the kids? Who's going to be taking care of the house? What's going to happen? We're both locked up. And I'm praying to God. I'm like, God, I did everything. I'm doing everything for you. I'm doing everything that you told me to do. And you know what I hear? I'm on my knees at this point. I'm in my second spot near Houston in Cleveland. And I finally got a cell to my, a 2-man cell. And I'm on my knees in the cell. I got some privacy, and I close my eyes and I'm begging God, why am I still here? What am I still doing here? And I hear, wait. Just wait. Just wait. Like, all right, you said wait. So I waited, and we start writing back and forth. She starts sending me Bible studies. She rediscovers her faith. She starts sending me a Bible studies. We're doing the same Bible studies, and we're sending each other letters back and forth from prison to prison. And we were closer locked up than we have ever been in 20 years.
Well,
Closer. We could. Well, and I mean, it wasn't easy either. We were still arguing. You did this and you did that. We had an argument one time, lasted 2 months, because it takes a week for you to get a letter. So she's saying this and I say this, and the letter's going back and forth, and you got to be careful with your words, because you might not get a letter. And she stopped writing me for a month too, because so it was a battle. But I told her, no matter, I don't care if you don't want me. I want you, and I'm going to fight for you. And even if you don't want me, I'm going to keep fighting for you.
Wow. Because
God told me we're supposed to be together. And so I'm waiting for my answer, my second answer. And I go see them, do the little rigmarole. And
the dog and pony show.
Yeah, where they're, oh, what have you done?
It's called a dog and pony show, because you go in there and you're like, you're this different person, and it's just
say whatever. It doesn't really even matter what you say, to be honest, because so we get through that. I get through that, and I'm not supposed to get an answer until like late July, August, and she gets sent home. and I'm waiting for like to be able to write her again at home, for her to write me, so I know where she's at home. Yeah, no, you left the halfway house and you were on your way home, and I go to commissary and my books are closed. And the guy goes, "You're going
going home." I
I'm
just
like,
thought about it. Right? You're
"Yeah,
going
you're
home.
going home,
You're
and
going home. You're going home.
Yes, you're going home.
So
My
when you
books
go
are
to
closed."
so when you go to commissary, right? So you go to commissary and you have money in there, but they zero you out because you're going home. So you don't know you're going home until they zero you out. So you go to commissary and you're like, you're zeroed out.
And I'm like stunned, and I'm like, "Wait, hold on, I got money in there." And I'm like, the lady goes, "Oh, it's zeroed out," and the guy who's working for
Yeah,
it
he
goes,
goes, you're going home.
"You're going home, bro." And I'm like, "Oh my God," try not to cry. Go into my cell, and I'm so excited. I'm telling everybody. And then somebody comes to me and goes, "Don't tell everybody."
No, you don't want to tell anybody. And the
Yeah,
reason why we don't tell anybody, because somebody will get you in a crash.
Yeah.
You get an argument, you get in a
gotta-
fight, and then you're gonna end up staying. So
He
that's
goes,
why
he goes, "Don't even even one of you guys, the guys you think is your friend or your buddy, he's still waiting
There's
for 3 more years."
there's
and
there's a
he's
lot of
angry.
anger, jealousy. When you're getting ready to go home, they know they're gonna start a fight with you, and
And
you're gonna stay a little longer.
I did have a friend that he goes, "Hey, let me double check that for you." So he calls his girl. She looked me up on the computer,
And you're
You're going
gone.
home.
Yeah, you're going home.
and I call my mom. I'm like, try to call my kids.
So
try to
you're
get a hold
actually
of somebody.
3 days from the zero out. You left
I think it was
2 days?
5 days.
5 days. Okay.
Just 5 days.
Usually
Just
when
short
they
of a week.
Yeah, usually when they zero you out, you're within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're gone out of there.
And so I get that. I'm trying to get a hold of my wife, what have you. She gets home and she's trying to decide whether or not she's going to stay with me. Even with God, she's like, "God, you need to show me a sign that we belong together, or I'm not going to, or I don't want him. Show me I have to."
What
be
was
with
the
him."
sign?
The sign was, I was heading home. We stopped at the taqueria on the way home from Beaumont to San Antonio.
Okay.
And the sign was that my mom says, "You know what's getting on Wednesday?" And I was like, "Oh my God, God showed me the sign," because he wasn't supposed to get out.
For another month.
He wasn't supposed to get out, and he didn't know.
So
he was out.
your mom knew he was coming out already.
His mom called her and told her.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
your mom called. Okay.
So then I was like, "No, I don't want. I need a sign if this and this and that." And my mom and I had told my stepdad, and my stepdad's a preacher as well, and he goes, "I stopped the sign," but in Spanish he said, "Like, there's your sign."
I thought to.
See,
yeah,
you're not allowed.
yeah. Wow. So
I
that.
was like, "Oh my God." I was kind of disappointed, and we couldn't continue. It was a rough year.
It was a rough year. And I get home and, she's not ready to have me there. She was, instead of,
Was it because she was more independent now?
no, it's because
Well,
she just
So
didn't think
she-
this was going to stick.
I when I came home, I was like, it'd been over 5 years, right? So I'm thinking, man, my wife is independent now. She don't need me. Why do I
'cause
want to go home?
She just
with,
got home. She just got home too.
Right.
So it was more, she was just done. And she's just done. Years of this, she was done. And she tells me the only reason I stayed with you is because I was obedient to God. She was being obedient, so she stayed with me. And
What
it
is
took
it?
a year, but we mended.
What is it now compared to? We know that the life that y'all lived, right?
Yeah.
So now living a Christian life, I mean, what would you tell somebody?
I think the scariest thing is a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to be this whole different person, and I'm gonna have to stop having fun." And I enjoy my life. I'm not angry anymore. I don't yell. I used to constantly be yelling. I don't yell anymore. I'm happy. I'm literally happy every day, and I owe it all to God. I have my wife. Talk about restoration. I went to prison. I lost my house. I lost all my possessions. I lost my wife and my children and my career. I was a nurse for 10 years. I lost my career, everything, right? Now, my wife's back. My kids are back. I can't get them to leave the house. They're grown-ups. They want to hang out with us. Who has 20-year-old grown-ups that want to hang out with them? My 20-year-olds want to hang out with me. We have our marriage back. We have our the possessions come back as anyway.
Right.
But and I found a career. I found a career where they didn't care that I was locked up. And
you
I'm
know-
doing better now than I was as
You
a
know, I
nurse.
always tell everybody, when you you go to prison, even if you get 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, in my case, 5 years was what, 3?
2. Well, I did 2.
So even if you do these short times in prison, to us, it's a life sentence.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the truth here. This is when they give us time, it's a life sentence. One is because if it wasn't a life sentence, then why is it that when we fill an application out, we have to say we're convicted felons?
Yes.
Everything that we do, they need to know that we're convicted felons, even though we didn't kill anybody, but we're convicted felons. That's going to go with us everywhere we go.
And you can't, and I mean, really, people don't understand what that means. That means you can never make a mistake again in your life. That means any mistake you make, you're looking at time from now on. You've done time, you're going to do time.
There ain't going to be no probation. They ain't
No.
going to be, you're off the rip. You're just going, you're going to go to prison because you've done prison. And the thing is that society looks at you different.
Oh, yes.
Completely different because you've gone to prison. I've seen it people close to me, some of my family members. I'm not the same guy that, went to prison. I had things, and you come and you're like, you're nobody. You got to start and the thing is if you're hearing this and you just got out of prison or you've been out of prison, you got to start from the bottom up.
Yes.
You got to start from the bottom up. Don't think that you're going to come in and say, you know what, I'm going to start where I left off, because that's not going to happen. That's only going to frustrate you, stress you out. You got to start from the bottom.
And if you start from where you were at when you went in, you're going to end up right back in there anyway.
Yep. And I've seen it. I've been in prison and I see these guys come back and they come back again and they come back, they leave, they come back in prison. So you got to give yourself some time, give yourself some leeway to adjust and your job and everything. But this is why I say that when they give us a prison sentence, it really is a life sentence.
Yeah.
Because wherever I go, now I can't carry a gun. Not that I would use it. I'm going to shoot somebody, but I can't carry a gun.
No.
In some cases, you can't vote.
Yeah.
My voice doesn't matter. I don't matter. I went to prison. He's gone to prison. We don't matter. So this is why I say you get a life sentence.
And most, so many jobs don't want you. And you feel so just like defeated. Like, what am I going to do? I had a career, like I said, for 10 years as a nurse. I'm like, what am I going to do? And everyone's telling me, hey, COVID, you can go get your nursing license now. I'm like, I don't want to go back to being a nurse. It's a bad environment. For one, it's really good for my drinking habit because you work for 16 hours and you're off. So like everything just feeds into my bad habits.
And in coming out of prison, don't think that you're just going to go, unless you have a family has a construction company, you're a truck driver, you're going to get some of those jobs. When I first came out, I was so desperate in getting a job that when I went to the drive-through, the manager was there and I said, hey, you guys are hiring at night? He goes, yeah. $18 an hour at McDonald's? I was freaking out. I was $18. You sure about that? $18. Come on in and fill out an app. So I fill out this app, right? Well, then I find out that I can't get hired because I was a felon. I go dude, it was a felon
McDonald's
because not even McDonald's, not even that Bozo the Clown with red hair wanted me. So it was like, you know what I mean? Because it's a life sentence. You go to prison, it's a life sentence. It's a tag, it's a sign that's on you. I've been to prison, So,
but I'll tell you what, you find spots. Walter blessed me he helped me find a job at doing electrical work for a year. He was starting his own company and he helped me out so much. He was there for me the whole time to help me succeed. And in the middle of it, I just thought to myself, I put an application at Toyota to work for Toyota. And I didn't know if they were going to hire a felon, but
did you see that little box?
No, they didn't have one.
No
box.
Have
And
you
I'm
been
like,
convicted of any felon,
what?
any crimes?
I'm like,
He didn't put it in.
I'm
He
like,
didn't put it in there, but it has a little check. It says, "Have you been convicted of
I'm like,
a crime?"
they didn't ask, but I ain't gonna tell them. And then I start as a temp because they're temp.
Right? Yeah.
So I go in this place and I'm thinking, maybe the temp company just hired me, but they're never gonna hire me to work here. And then I look around, and man, there is prison ink everywhere. I'm like, man, I'm like,
tatted up and
every
everything.
third guy has done time.
Yeah.
Every third guy. They hire so many fellas.
And thank God for
Thank
Toyota.
God for Toyota.
Thank God for Toyota.
Toyota, PepsiCo.
Yeah,
there's a lot of good companies. Coke, they will hire felons. So if you want to work, you can find work, but
Don't give up. I mean, if
Don't
you
give up.
get to the first job and then well, I can't hire you because you're a convicted felon, ain't no big deal. Just go to the next one.
and
Just-
like I said,
yeah.
I was a nurse. How was I going to go back to manufacturing?
What you were doing
or-
before.
Luckily I had a trade. I could do electrical work. I thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life, and then luckily I got this
So
job.
now are both of y'all doing worship? Are y'all doing the worship leaders at the church? Are you doing any?
My wife is
You're-
in the worship team.
You're in the worship team, right?
Church.
With Walter, right? You guys, okay? The English service.
and I serve. I do. I usher. Whenever I
Isn't there a
can, and
difference that when you serve God, it's just different?
It is, and a big thing about our church is serving. It's one of our Reach Connect Serve is our motto, and we, you're supposed to serve the community. You're not supposed to just hang out and love God. You're supposed to work for God.
I've always believed that if for you to grow in God and grow in the Word, is you got to share it. You got to go tell other people. And this is why we do this podcast, because I want people to know that God can change you. I want people to know that God can change.
And God does miracles. I mean, I literally would walk around with a frown on. I yelled constantly.
Now you're always smiling, right?
Now I'm always smiling. Well,
Me too. I
But
I laugh a lot, and
I don't.
but
I don't holler all the
but it's
time.
a peace that God gives you, though. It's
Just
just
total
it's
peace.
a total. Even when things are going bad, you just, man, why is this happening? You just get this peace. Look, check this out. Just what was it? 2 days ago, they stole our utility trailer from the church.
I saw that.
Did you see that? Man, I thought I was going to get mad. I thought I was going to lose it, because that trailer belonged to my father. I bought that trailer several years and gave it to them so they could use it at the church. Then I got it back, restored it, made everything new on it, and they stole it. And I was like, I thought I was going to be so upset, but God gave me this peace.
Yeah.
It was the
he does.
craziest thing. I was like, okay, God, we use it here at the church for the ministry. Okay, we don't have a trailer now, so you're gonna have to get it. So we have to trust in Him. God, I know you're gonna give me a trailer. We need a trailer. Our trailer's been stolen. We need a trailer so we can pick up donations and help people, because that's what we do. We help our community. So listen, if you're hearing this podcast and you're looking to get connected, or you have a loved one that's in prison coming out and you want to get connected with our prison wives, my wife helps the prison wives. It's a group. And then we have a prison talk. If you want to get connected, you want to get your husband, you're coming out of prison, or your wife coming out of prison, a loved one coming out of prison, we get together on Thursdays. The address here is 2423 Palo Alto Road. So we have a new location that we hang out. We kind of jam. We got music here, and we just kind of do some worship. So we're here every Thursday. Mondays we do our podcast. Thursdays we hang out. We have a Bible study. And soon, in February 5th, is going to be our first, February 5th, right? It's going to be our first Sunday service that we're going to have here. And it's going to be at 2 p.m. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys. And Rob,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you for sharing. Hank.
Thank you.
So, like I said, if you have any questions, please type them in. My wife is moderating any questions. You have any questions for us? If you guys get a chance, share this, share it. Send it to somebody that you know that has an addiction, somebody that's struggling, somebody that's going through something, husband and wife that are splitting up. There's issues there. Share it. Send it over. Share it.
I think what's important too to remember is like what we were talking about on the phone, that when your spouse comes out of prison, be patient with them.
Oh my God.
Because I think our second stop was at a Buc-ee's, and I had a full-blown panic attack at Buc-ee's. the smells, the people. I'm like, and at Walmart, I'm at Walmart. She took a left, I took a right, and I couldn't find her, and I started freaking out. You know, I
Yeah.
really started freaking out because I felt like a child who's lost. You know, and it's scary. You know, and it sounds ridiculous. I was only gone for 2 years. You shouldn't. I kept thinking I shouldn't be like this.
I always get people say, yeah, but you know, you don't get PTSD. You know,
Oh, yeah.
look, man,
That's true.
PTSD comes because you're always thinking of protecting yourself in prison.
Yeah.
That's where you're at. Hey, I got to look at my back. I got to look to the left, to the right, look at my back. And that's a constant taking care of your back, right? So
Never
you're
falling completely asleep.
yeah,
So
you know, just kind of like dozing off with one eye. And, you know, so you're going to have issues when you come out. So if you came out of prison, your loved one came out of prison, give him some time. He's going to be fine. I wish they would have gave me some time. My family would have gave me some time to adjust. It wasn't like that. It was just like, hey man, you're different. You're not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I wasn't the same. Believe me, I wasn't the same when I came out. I had a lot of issues. I think it was more like anger. I lost my dad, when he was, you know, when I was in prison. I didn't get to say bye to him. And it just it was hard for me to come home and come into the house and look at his recliner and not see him there. And man, it was just so hard coming home and then dealing with all the issues. And, you know, you come out of prison, you got a lot of issues now because you got so much, you feel not that you do have, but you feel that you have so much that you lost and you're trying to catch up with the time. And the thing is that it all plays out. It all plays out. Give yourself some time. Don't get stressed out. Don't let that anxiety get you. You let that anxiety get you, you're gonna have problems. You're gonna have issues.
And let everything come one step at a time. You know, don't be in a rush to get everything. You know, just you work on one thing, and once you accomplish that one thing, you work on something else.
It'll come back. It'll come to you.
It will.
So, guys, thank you for this podcast. Thank you for listening. And I was here with Mr. Rob here, Rob Luna.
Yes.
So, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're good.
We're good.
All right. Thank you, guys. Share it. Share this video. Share it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.